I bought my second home and invited everyone to celebrate. Not a single person came. They all went to see my brother's new bike. 1 month later, Dad called. We need to talk about the second home. He added, you should let your brother move in. Now I've decided to cut them off. I bought my second home and invited everyone to celebrate. Not a single person came. Not my parents, not my cousins, not even my so-called friends. The silence echoed through the polished hardwood floors, mocking me louder than any words could. I watched through the window as my brother's new bike gleamed under the sun, a shiny distraction that had stolen every eye, every word of praise that should have been mine. My phone buzzed with notifications, photos of laughter, clinking glasses, all somewhere else or without me. 1 month later, Dad called. His voice was calm, almost casual, but it carried a weight that knotted my stomach. We need to talk about the second home, he said. And then, as if he were passing a note in class, you should let your brother move in. I listened quietly, breathing slow and measured. That was the moment I decided silence would be my weapon. I've always been the quiet one, the planner, the one who watches before she acts. Growing up, my ideas were dismissed as overthinking my accomplishments, minimized in whispers that reached everyone but me. My brother, louder, flashier, effortlessly magnetic, always commanded attention. And I learned early that showing up wasn't enough. You had to perform. I worked hard, saved every extra penny, built a life measured in milestones no one noticed. My first home was modest, my victories private, quietly proud. Every invitation I sent felt like a test, and every empty chair reminded me of the invisible boundary that separated me from the family I loved but never truly existed in. Even Dad, who I trusted to see my effort, often praised my brother with the ease of habit, as if my achievements were inevitable background noise. I carried it all with calm restraint, because anger never suited me. Clarity did. I learned to read the room, to measure my responses, to wait. And now, standing in a home that gleamed with my own sweat and patience, I realized how deeply my family had underestimated me, and how quietly I could make them regret it. Every interaction since the second home invitation had been a quiet sting. At Dad's dinner, I poured wine while my brother regaled the table with stories I'd heard 100 times, each laugh pointed, deliberate, leaving mine swallowed in air. Mum complimented his jacket, then glanced at mine with that faint curl of disapproval that lingered like smoke. Even distant cousins found excuses to hover near him, their smiles brighter when he spoke, dimmer when I offered a thought. I learned to note the pauses, the micro-expressions, the subtle shrug that dismissed me, the slight tilt of a head signaling I was invisible. When they spoke, it was always layered, casual questions that were really thinly veiled judgments. "Oh, so you're still working at that office?" Delivered with a faint smirk. I nodded, kept my voice calm, almost too calm, and let them reveal their own impatience. I began observing, cataloguing each slight, each word meant to diminish me. The air in every room felt dense, suffocating in its polite pretense. And with each deliberate insult, each glance that cut sharper than words, I felt a quiet fire build. They thought they were untouchable. I was learning their rhythm and waiting. It wasn't a scream or confrontation that sparked the shift. It was the quiet of my empty living room, sunlight spilling across floors I had built with my own hands. I walked through the rooms, touching counters, tracing walls, feeling the weight of effort no one had acknowledged. The realization hit like ice in my veins. I had been giving my energy to people who saw me as optional, an accessory to their admiration of my brother. Enough. I paused by the window, watching my brother polish that stupid bike, oblivious to the life I'd created. My chest tightened, not with anger, but with clarity. This wasn't about revenge in a moment of passion. It was about reclaiming respect, setting boundaries invisible but unbreakable. I could let their disregard continue, or I could respond with calm precision, letting their own ignorance reveal itself in time. I made a quiet promise to myself. No announcements, no dramatics, no pleading for recognition. I would step back, let them come to the silence they had created. Their choices had already marked the outcome. I didn't need to fight, just to exist fully, deliberately, in the space they refused to honor. That was enough. That was the first strike. I didn't rush. I never do. I sat at my desk with blueprints, contracts, and spreadsheets spread before me, tracing every detail of ownership, access, and leverage. My second home was mine, legally, financially, irrevocably. I reviewed the mortgage, the insurance, the municipal records. Each document became a silent weapon. I noted their assumptions, their casual expectation that I would bend, that I would allow my brother to move in without question. I drafted letters I didn't send, Emails I left in drafts, practicing tone, clarity, precision. I consulted a lawyer, not to escalate, but to know my boundaries, my rights, my power. Every clause, every restriction was noted, memorized, stored. I created contingencies. If they tried guilt, I had facts. If they tried charm, I had silence. If they tried intrusion, I had contracts. Outside my home, I began shifting my social presence, subtle updates. Invitations extended to people who truly mattered, not those swayed by spectacle. I documented their snubs, not for revenge, but for evidence of patterns I would never tolerate again. The plan was simple: exist fully, firmly, and let their assumptions collapse under their own weight. No confrontation, no theatrics, just a quiet assertion of control they had never anticipated. The day I chose to act, I didn't knock. I didn't call. I simply updated the house listings, legally, irrevocably, on my terms. Invitations went out quietly, only to those who valued me, those who had always seen me. I watched from my window as my family drove past, thinking I would host them, expecting their usual dominance. The driveway remained empty, save for their startled glances at the neighbor's house. The bike, the laughter that wasn't theirs to claim. Then came the calls. Dad's polite voice, trying to negotiate, trying to charm. My brother's smug confidence faltering as I calmly recited facts. Ownership, restrictions, boundaries. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg for acknowledgement. Each word was measured, precise, and carried the weight of months of being overlooked. I could hear their hesitation over the line, the subtle recognition that I had outmaneuvered them not with fury, but with foresight. The silence that followed was richer than any confrontation could have been. In that quiet, I felt a deep satisfaction. Not triumph over them, but triumph in myself. They had chosen their path. I had chosen mine, and for the first time, it was completely untouchable. The fallout was quieter than I imagined, yet sharper than any argument. My family called, hesitated mid-sentence, then hung up. Dad's voice over the phone trembled slightly when he finally spoke, betraying the frustration he tried to mask. My brother stopped showing off that bike in front of me. The confidence he wore like armor now had cracks. Friends who had once gravitated toward him began to notice me. My presence, my space, and slowly, deliberately, my home filled with people who valued me, not the spectacle my family preferred. I watched it all unfold with a measured calm. No tantrums, no dramatic confrontations, just the subtle shift in attention, the recognition that I was no longer optional, no longer background noise. My self-worth, once tethered to their approval, now stood untouchable, undeniable. The stakes were not just pride or property. They were respect, autonomy, and the quiet power of being seen on my own terms. For anyone who has felt overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated, this isn't just a story about a house or a brother's bike. It's proof that calm, deliberate action, rooted in clarity and patience, carries a weight louder than anger ever could. And sometimes silence speaks the loudest. I sit in my second home now, sunlight spilling across the floors I built with my own hands, and I finally feel it. Quiet, unshakable satisfaction. Not pride for show, not revenge for spectacle, but the steady, unspoken acknowledgement that I am enough. My work, my choices, my life entirely my own. The world outside still spins with expectations and judgments, but inside these walls, I measure nothing by their approval. I've learned that respect cannot be demanded, only quietly commanded through consistency, patience, and integrity. My relationships have shifted. The ones that matter are closer, deeper, built on genuine connection rather than appearances. The rest? Their absence is no longer a wound but a signal, a filter I never had before. The future feels deliberate, expansive, unhurried. I plan, I build, I live, not in reaction to others, but in full possession of myself. My brother may still flaunt, my family may still fumble with recognition, but it no longer touches me. And in that clarity, I understand a truth I have carried silently all these years. Those who try to diminish you are only as powerful as you allow. I won't allow it. Not now, not ever. I exist fully, and they will watch me thrive in silence.